Hi, my name is Sakshi Bagai and I'm a Mass Comm student at Lindenwood University. On behalf of LUTV 26, I'm here today with Rachel, Douchant, and Christen Mitchell, and we're going to talk about the elections. So, Rachel, why don't you tell us something about yourself?
I'm an associate professor of philosophy here at Lindenwood. I wrote my PhD dissertation on David Hume's classical liberalism. So my area of concentration in philosophy is political and economic philosophy.
Sounds good. What about you, Christen?
Well, I'm a friend of Rachel, so she invited me on. I'm a graduate from Washington University with a degree in economics, and I've worked in the medical healthcare field, billing and insurance issues, and now I work on electronic health records.
Sounds nice. Okay, so Rachel, tell me, what is a libertarian?
Well, first of all, another term for libertarianism is classical liberalism. So it's really associated with the political philosophy of America's founders. And libertarians appeal to put it simply, something we might call the harm principle, which is the idea that we should really never use force, or that it's immoral to use force unless we're doing so in self-defense. So they're really pro-freedom and pro-voluntary exchange. Libertarians are also interested in free markets. They believe that free markets work and that people have reasons to exchange with one another. It can be good for me, and so I'll exchange with you. I don't have to love you or even know you in order to do things that you really need me to do because I can do it for my own benefit. And so if problems do arise, they look for creative ways to solve those problems through the free market.
Okay. So tell me, what do you think makes Ron Paul a libertarian?
Right. Ron Paul is actually running as a Republican, so that can be a little confusing.
Yeah.
He's done 10 terms in Congress, and he did run as a libertarian. I mean, he was a libertarian for a while. I don't know exactly how many
he ran in
terms.
1988, but I don't know about his congressional record.
He started out as a libertarian, changed his affiliation to Republican, but he really is a libertarian at heart. So there's a couple of things we might mention. In his 10 terms in Congress, he has a very consistent record of, if it's going to make your taxes go up, he votes no. And if it's going to make your taxes go down, he votes yes.
And if it's not approved by the Constitution, he votes no.
Right. Very constitutionally minded. And he's very consistent. Lobbyists don't go to his office because there's no point in wasting their time. He's going to vote one way according to the principle.
So he has decided what he's going to do. That's what you're saying.
Right.
So you know what he's going to do, because he's done it and he said he's going to do it.
He knows what he's going to do. He also really counts as a libertarian because he's a defender of just war theory, which is the idea that you really only should participate in a war if it's in self-defense. And so wars that have to do with nation building and other things like that aren't acceptable to him. And he was one of only 2 people to stand against the bill that, or the act that gave the president war powers, and has continued as a presidential nominee to emphasize that we still have not declared war in Iraq or Afghanistan, that we have, which the Constitution requires that Congress should do. So anything else on Ron Paul as a libertarian?
No, he knows what he believes and he's going to do it. And he's written so many books on libertarianism and has been just such a defender of freedom for so long that it's...
He knows a lot about economics. He has a good understanding of free markets, which he's shown in the works that he's written. Now, he does have 2 controversial opinions. Like in all parties, libertarians do disagree on a few things. One is immigration, and the other one is abortion. And so on immigration, Ron Paul takes the position that we should have very well-defended borders. Some libertarians agree with him, some don't. And on abortion, he is pro-life. Some libertarians are pro-choice, some are pro-life. However, on abortion, all libertarians do agree that it was a travesty that the abortion issue ever came to the federal level, that the Constitution really has no resources in it to address that question, and that it should have been left at the state level. So whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, libertarians agree it should be handled at the state level.
So what you're trying to say is that Ron Paul is just dedicated to what he's going to do. He has that mindset.
Right. I mean, he's just totally dependable and consistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone seems to be treating McCain and Romney as the only real contenders for the Republican nomination at this point. So why should voters care about Ron Paul? What do you think?
Because voters should care about what they believe in, not who looks the most presidential or who the media is telling you has the best shot. It's just, I don't know if Ron Paul's going to win or not, but that's not going to affect my choice of voting for him for a second.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Ron Paul is so different from the status quo. I think the media just
doesn't know what to do with him.
It doesn't know what to do with him. Exactly. Yeah, and they're used to the way that things normally go. His support has been largely grassroots. You know, it's come through the internet.
He's raised more money than any other Republican candidate. Nobody seems to want to talk about that.
Wow.
He's having a money bomb today where he's not organizing any of these grassroots things. It's not coming from the top down. It's coming from the people and benefiting him. So today is the 51st anniversary of he and his wife's marriage. And so people are encouraging everyone to donate more to his campaign today. No other campaign's doing that. Nobody else seems to care about their candidate as much as Ron Paul's people do.
And isn't it true that on all these money bomb days where they have a big push, you know, he has brought in more money than he ever even dreamed?
Yeah, he's still surprised.
I mean, I have seen, if you go on YouTube and you look at some things from Ron Paul, you will see him say, I had no idea that this many people were interested in limited government and the Constitution. You know, he didn't think anybody wanted to hear about this stuff. But this grassroots support has just, in a very decentralized, kind of spontaneous way, has arisen. Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter. I just think it's so funny that people matter about whether their candidate is more electable or not. I mean, you shouldn't vote on what everybody else is doing. That's peer pressure at its worst. You should vote for what you think the country needs.
You should make your own decision and not just let anybody else.
So anybody who asks me that question, I just think, why are you even voting if it's just a popularity contest? Don't you? You should look at the issues, not whether somebody's wearing the right tie or not.
Well, and there is this emphasis on strategic voting. I don't want my vote to be wasted, et cetera, et cetera. But at this point, I mean, this is a great opportunity for people to express their disapproval of the mainline party people by voting for Ron Paul. I mean, we're still at a stage of the game where it's going to make a big difference. And even if Ron Paul doesn't make the nomination, he's changed the whole conversation.
That's true.
I mean, in the debates, he's the one where people go, you know, the actual person asking the questions will often say, what are you doing up there? You're against the Iraq War. Why are you up there with the Republican candidates?
I mean, the words gold standard and abolishing the IRS and talking about the Department of Education's validity, I mean, that just hasn't been in the political landscape for the last half century. So he's really changing things, and whether he wins or not, the more people that think, the more that he's made a difference.
So what about the person who loves Ron Paul and his ideas, and he's worried that it will, you know, it could never happen or it won't happen? What do you think?
Well, the first thing I want to say is Ron Paul does have a lot of pretty lofty goals. All libertarians agree that at the federal level, the government is going way beyond its constitutional mandate. And so he wants to pull it back to an extent that shocks people. However, it has to be said that Ron Paul has incremental plans for these things. So it's not as if he were to become president, he would
like
just
push the button.
Yeah, he would just, you know, bomb the building that the IRS is in. He has steps that he's going to take, which in and of themselves are fairly realistic. And even if we could do 1/10 of the things that he would like to do, you know, we'd be heading in the right direction.
So he's having a great impact on his audience, and you think he has all that power?
Well, and I think we should take into account, I mean, let's look back at America in the teens, in the 20s and the 30s. There were 15 socialist parties at that time. None of those people had any real contenders for Congress even, and certainly not for the presidency. But the Democratic Party adopted huge pieces of the socialist platform. And it got in that sneaky kind of way. And so we can also take into account that just by showing him financial support, by showing that more people are voting for him than anybody ever expected, including himself, we can possibly influence the platforms of the other two parties.
I agree with you. Okay, what about libertarianism has been, you know, marginalized in the past, and but the grassroots support for Ron Paul has astonished everyone. So that's even including him, you know, it's really astonishing. Not just his audience, he himself is kind of shocked. So what's the explanation for this? What do you think explains all this?
It's just such a large issue. There's so many